stuff, obviously a big part of the Luka trade. Things have not gone well in Dallas. What about AD?
Yeah, so initially there was a lot of smoke about the Raptors maybe being interested, maybe the Hawks being interested. With the Hawks, the idea was to flip Kristaps Porzingis' expiring deal for Anthony Davis, and then Anthony Davis hurt his hand. And initially there was some thought about, okay, would he require surgery? Anthony Davis very publicly on social media pushed back on that. Now supposedly he's supposed to be out 6 weeks. So if you're a prospective suitor for Anthony Davis, do you really want to trade for a guy who may or may not be available this season? And on top of that, we all know about Anthony Davis's injury history, right? Long list of injuries, literally hundreds of injuries over the course of his career. He's played only 20 games this season, played only 51 games last season. He'll be 33 in March. And oh yeah, he makes $58 million this season, and he has a player option next year for $62.7 million. Given his injury history, given his age, given his lack of availability, that is a lot of money to pay for a guy who has a lot of question marks. And he wants a new deal. On top of that, Rich Paul has been agitating to get Anthony Davis a new deal. Good luck with that, Rich Paul. I think this is one of those situations where the Mavs probably get stuck with him. They kick the tires a little bit when Kyrie Irving comes back from his ACL injury, see what he looks like alongside Kyrie and Cooper Flagg, and then revisit it in the offseason.
Let's get to Michael Porter Jr. What are the tea leaves saying about MPJ?
Yeah, this is the one. You remember in high school, I don't know if they still do this in high school, but in high school you had the yearbook thing, like most likely to succeed, the superlatives. I think this is most likely to get moved here. He's having a career year in Brooklyn. He's averaging a career high in points, rebounds, and assists. He's big, strong, fast, athletic. This is the version of Michael Porter Jr. that everybody always thought would be promised in Denver, and it never really panned out, right? So I think a lot of teams could use somebody like Michael Porter Jr. Maybe, for example, the Pistons. They're first in the East. They've got Cade Cunningham, who's a top 5 MVP candidate, along with Jalen Duren, who's taken the leap. They do a lot of their damage in the paint. MPJ would offer more shooting and size, and they could really level up from like the Tobias Harris to MPJ. Maybe also Golden State. We talked about Jimmy Butler, his ACL injury. He'd fit perfectly, Michael Porter Jr. would, alongside Draymond and Steph Curry. Maybe they could sort of cobble together, a play-in contenderish, try to make a run situation, or maybe they just flip it for Jimmy Butler's contract. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to have a lot of people very interested in him.
What about Jonathan Kuminga? Certainly Dub Nation and those in the Bay Area have known about sort of the Kuminga factor, if you will, for the last season and a half plus here. But with everything, as you mentioned, going on with Golden State at the moment, what about Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, what a mess that situation is, right? So he was eligible to be traded on January 15th and immediately put his hand up, and you can't blame him for saying that he wanted out, right? But then GM Mike Dunleavy said, well, took a sort of a shot at him, Tom, and he said, well, the thing with trade demands is there has to be a demand. So ouch on that one. Now, Butler's injury kind of changes things here from the Warriors' perspective. He blows out his ACL, and then all of a sudden you think, okay, do they move Kuminga anyway and try to bring in help? Again, maybe MPJ from Brooklyn, potentially DeMar DeRozan has been linked to him from the Kings. Kings previously were interested in Kuminga, or if they don't like the market, do they try to put Kuminga back into the rotation? So before Butler got hurt, Kuminga hadn't played in over a month. After Butler got hurt, Kuminga got some running at 21 minutes in the loss to the Raptors. Looked pretty good, scored 20 points. But then he left Thursday night's game, Kuminga did, after just 9 minutes with a knee and an ankle injury. So how does that complicate matters, right? If you're another team potentially interested in Jonathan Kuminga, you got to wait to see what happens with this MRI. There's just a ton of moving parts here for Golden State with regards to Jonathan Kuminga, and none of them are good.
No, not at all. Then they're servicing about Bob Myers and Draymond and late night texts from Tokyo involving Moody and Kuminga. It's just, it never stops, as the NBA never does. John Gonzalez joining us here. John, certainly appreciate it. Thanks for hopping on HQ as we take a look at tonight's notable games. Let's take a look at the biggest spread on the board. That would be in OKC. The Thunder, a healthy 16-point favorite over the Pacers. That total, though, 226.5. Indy's usually involved in some higher scoring games. Odds obviously subject to change on FanDuel.
Dub Nation, we need to talk because something is shifting in this league right now, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. The Anthony Davis situation is not just a Dallas story anymore. It's an NBA story. And for the Golden State Warriors, it might quietly become one of the most important crossroads of the Steph Curry era. Let's be real with each other. Anthony Davis is one of the most talented big men to ever touch a basketball. When healthy, he's not just a star, he's a defensive system by himself. He changes how teams attack the rim. He erases mistakes. He makes shooters think twice. And offensively, when he's right, he gives you elite scoring, gravity in the paint, and a mismatch nightmare that only a handful of players in the world can provide. But here's the problem: health, availability, and that massive contract. AD is 32, turning 33. He's missed significant time again. He's dealing with another injury, and on top of that, he's owed nearly $60 million this season and has a player option north of $62 million next year. That's not just a number, that's a franchise-shaping commitment. That's the kind of money that changes how you build everything else around it. And that's why this conversation suddenly matters for the Golden State Warriors. Because Golden State is in a unique position. Steph Curry is still elite. Draymond Green is still a defensive anchor. Steve Kerr still has a championship-level system. But the window is narrowing. You don't get infinite chances when your superstar is in his mid-30s. You have to decide when to push your chips in. And Anthony Davis represents the ultimate all-in swing. Think about what AD would mean next to Steph Curry. The pick and roll alone would be devastating. You can't trap Steph if Anthony Davis is diving to the rim. You can't sit back if AD is popping into space. You can't protect the paint if you're worried about Curry pulling from 30. That's not basketball. That's a nightmare for defenses. Defensively, my goodness, you'd be talking about Draymond Green and Anthony Davis together, two of the smartest, most versatile defenders of the last decade on the same floor. Switchability, rim protection, communication, that's championship DNA. That's why this rumor hits differently for Dub Nation. But here's the part that makes Warriors fans nervous, and rightfully so. Anthony Davis has not been reliable physically. That's not hate, that's reality. Every front office in the NBA knows it. You don't trade premium assets and commit $60+ million unless you're confident that guy will actually be on the floor when it matters most. That's the gamble. And the Warriors don't have endless assets anymore. They can't afford to miss. If you swing for AD and he breaks down, you've just locked Steph Curry's final years into a financial and competitive mess. That's the nightmare scenario. But if it works, if you get 2 healthy seasons of Anthony Davis next to Steph Curry, that might be enough to steal another championship. That's what makes this so intense. And here's what people aren't talking about enough. Dallas is not in a strong position. AD is injured. His value is uncertain. His contract is enormous. That makes it hard for them to find the perfect deal. And when a team is stuck with a star who costs that much and might not be available, the market gets weird. That's when opportunistic franchises start watching. That's when teams like Golden State quietly pick up the phone. Not because it's guaranteed, not because it's happening tomorrow, but because this is the type of moment where championship windows are either saved or wasted. Steph Curry doesn't have 5 more prime years. He has now. The Warriors don't need to rebuild. They need one more elite force who changes the math on the court. Anthony Davis is one of the few players in the NBA who can do that. So, Dub Nation, this isn't about fantasy trades. This is about timing, risk, and ambition. Do the Warriors dare to chase greatness one more time? Do they dare to bet on a superstar whose talent is undeniable, but whose health is a question mark? Because if Golden State makes a move like this, it's not about the regular season. It's about banners. It's about legacy. It's about making sure that when Steph Curry finally walks off that court for the last time, he didn't do it dragging a mediocre roster behind him. This is the kind of move that defines eras. And whether it happens or not, the fact that Anthony Davis is even being discussed in this way tells you everything about where the Warriors are right now. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. Dub Nation, let me know what you think. Is Anthony Davis worth the risk for Golden State? Or is this one gamble the Warriors can't afford to take? Like, subscribe, and let's talk.